Mamukabje, do mamukabje. Bugile.
Already alluded to our last reflection for today, call and mission, the journey that we walk together. It's been accompanying us since we came on Friday. And I think it's befitting that we end with this topic, call, mission, the journey that we will walk together. In Mark chapter 16, verse 15, the Lord says to his disciples after the resurrection, go into the whole world and proclaim the good news to the whole of creation. We are entering Holy Week. Something was already said about it yesterday. Before we get to Holy Week, Jesus responds to a call given to him by his Father. And John's Gospel is full of that. He talks to us and he says, my Father has sent me. I've been sent by my Father. He has said yes. The Father calls him and he says yes, and he comes. And part of his experience will be what we will walk through this week. Part of his response involved suffering and pain. I want us to hold that as the background of this sharing this morning. Someone is calling you, someone is calling me to send me, calling me from this world, sending me into this world, a world that when he created it, we were told by my beautiful Moya, it was good. This world is good. This world is beautiful because the divine has touched it. But we know that this world is not also solely good and beautiful because it's tainted by sin. Your sin, my sin, has tarnished the goodness of this world. As I am talking right now, someone is having to flee their home because of someone's sin. Someone is dying because of someone's decision and choice. A wrong decision, a wrong choice. As you are sitting here, you are going through pain and suffering because of somebody's wrong decision, somebody's wrong choice. You have done the same to someone. That's the world we live in. That's the world he's asking us to walk into. A world touched by sin. The sin that has tarnished the goodness of this world. That's the world Jesus comes into. And because the world is touched by sin, it will put a cross on his shoulder. Because this world is tainted by sin, it will put a cross on your shoulder. Your sin, my sin. And so it is inevitable that the call with it comes the cross. It's inevitable. Whether you like it or you don't, whether you scream and kick or you welcome it, the cross is inevitable because it is a world that is now touched by sin. So I want us to hold that as the background for our call, our mission, our journey together. So already, when I'm saying call, we are assuming that there's one who calls. There's one who calls and gives the message and sends, which also means there's the other one who responds who listens to the message, the instruction, and goes. We come back to Jesus. The Father calls him to enter this world. And I've already said, he will say that several times in the Gospels. So he comes into this tainted world to reveal God's goodness, God's mercy, God's beauty, God's extravagant love. This world, as tainted as it is, Jesus comes in as the beauty of God. And in turn, he will call others to do the same, to reveal this beauty, this goodness of God, to spread this message that God is love, that God is life, and that's what you and I were created for. And so we know it very well that he calls the 12, the apostles, his friends, that he goes here, there with them. In another instance, we find he has 72. He calls and he sends. He also calls individuals. The Samaritan woman, whom we saw yesterday, she was called in her own way, in her own situation. We saw she went and spread the good news of I've met the Messiah. The man he healed, that Gideon, he called him, found him in his situation, called him, and he was sent. To be called is something special. I don't know if there are primary school teachers here. If there are not, think of yourself when you were in grade 1, grade 2. You know when you call a grade 1 child or grade 2 child and you send them, have you ever seen their smile? Or think of yourself when the teacher calls you, it makes you feel big, makes you feel good. Teacher told me I mean. This is what I mean. You know, it boosts you. There's something beautiful about being called. You are here today. I am here today because the Lord called us to be here. He said to the Samaritan, I came all the way to this place to meet you. He came all the way to this white mole place to meet you, to meet me. He called us. He's calling us, inviting us to be his co-workers, to work along with him, like he called the 12, to work along with him, to build a kingdom of goodness, of beauty, of love. When we respond, we experience a certain peace that you cannot find. Whichever way you go, you cannot find that peace. It comes when we respond, and somehow life becomes meaningful and fulfilling. Because his call is love and life. It's not like us at times we just call someone to use them. We call someone to just send them to do something for us. When the Lord calls, he calls us to come and experience love and life. That's what makes the difference. My parish is largely white, where I am. And you can kind of count the people of my skin. The youth life is kind of dead, or was dead. And this bothered me, really bothered me. What can I do about it? But I don't understand the culture of this place. I don't even understand the youth of this place. Where do I start from? Forget about it yet. But it bothered me again and again and again until I was like, okay, Lord, I don't know, I'll just see what I can do about it. So I write to this lady, and she says, sister, I've been thinking about it, but I've been trying to push it away. So the two of us get together and go to our parish priest. We have a little youth group going in the parish now. It's not perfect, but I am so happy that bother, that sleepless night over it is gone, and I'm at peace. When we respond to the call, there is a certain peace and happiness that comes with it. And he will call us in various ways. Sometimes when we talk call, we usually think of guys of Nana and Nana sister. I'm talking about the call for each person, because everybody is called. And there are also calls within a call, like I'm saying, okay, but you're talking about being called, you're already a sister. In my sisterhood, every day the Lord will call me to somewhere, to someone, to something, to that parish where I had to go and do something about the young people in that parish. And it gave me peace. Each one of us sitting here is being called, and it's an everyday thing. So he will call us in various ways. It could be through the experiences that bother us. Is there an experience that is bothering you? The Lord might be calling you through that experience. He will call us through someone. This weekend, we have had talks, invited to reflect. Through that, the Lord will call you to something He has not called you already. Through the scriptures, He will speak to us and call us. Our encounters each day in our lives, circumstances we go through, the Lord will use those to call us. Are we paying attention? Is there something stirring in your heart? This weekend, what did it stir in your heart? Because through that stirring, the Lord is calling. And refusal to respond, because we can refuse. Refusal to respond, I think is like, you know what goes on in abortion clinics? The so-called unwanted babies. I get rid of this unwanted baby. When the Lord is stirring something in us, calling us, and we refuse, I think we turn our hearts into an abortion clinic. Are you sitting here pregnant with something the Lord has put in you, and you are saying it's an unwanted baby? Are you sitting here, the Lord is calling, something is stirring, you don't want it, it's only a lump of cells? Have we already aborted? And are we saying, I'm not willing to stop? We might not abort. We might apply some birth control methods. I will answer only once. Lord, I'm already doing this in the chaplaincy. Lord, I'm already doing this in my family. It's enough. I have one child already. Birth control method. I cannot have a second one, a third one, and a fourth one. Are we doing the same with God's call? You've called me once and that's it. No more. We might not abort, but we might apply some other birth control methods. Is that me? Let us check. Maybe I have a sleepless night. The day is heavy. Could it be because I'm going through an abortion? Could it be because I have aborted? I'm not talking of physical abortion. I'm talking about the abortion when God calls and we refuse. Could that be what's causing my sleepless nights? Could be that is what is taking my peace away. responding demands that you get up and you leave your comfort. The Father calls the Son and he sends him into this world. He gets up and he leaves the heavenly comfort to be one of us vulnerable human beings. He calls Peter. Peter has to get up and leave his tasty fish, chase after human beings. Matthew has to leave his monies from his tax collecting job. Joseph gives up his dream. He probably dreamt of having 10 sons or 12 sons like his grandparents in his Jewish line. And now he has to leave that dream and get married and bring up a child who's not even his biological child. Ruth leaves her people. You have to get up and leave your comfort zone. I said we are entering into Holy Week, where we will see a Jesus who not only left the comfort of heaven, but now he has to live in the comfort of his life, the comfort of his mother's house. He braves it all, living in the comfort of his mother's house. Through the Gethsemane experience, the nakedness on the cross, giving up his life for you and for me. That's the journey we will walk beginning today. He braved it all for you to have life, for me to have life. And this weekend, we are here. We braved it too. I think that's something we need to be thankful for. He said to us, come away, come stay with me this weekend. And we braved it, and we came. And the response comes in various ways. You either respond with haste, or you are hesitant, or you drag your feet. I'm sure you have an experience of calling your kids, and you look how they respond. You might call once, twice, thrice, and one might be glued to their gadget. You're calling them, they are glued to their gadget. One is in bed, they will not get up. You're calling them, they even cover themselves. Another is busy on WhatsApp. Is that you? Is that me? God is calling. I pull the blanket. I'm busy on WhatsApp. I will not get up. As a parent, at the end of the day, when you get to know your kids, you might not waste time. You know which one to nanga to call, because you know how that one will respond. We complain. One person is doing everything. She's the one here. She's the one there. She's the one there. What do you want God to do if he's going to call and all you do is pull a blanket? If God calls and all you do is to stick to your gadget. But he knows that if I call this one, she will run. What do you want God to do? If we as parents are doing that, what do we want God to do? So maybe before we complain that so and so everything seems to be so and so, thank to yourself first. And why is that? Then there are others who probably want to respond, but somehow genuinely they feel I'm incapable. They feel I'm unworthy. That's a natural excuse. That's a natural response somehow. But God doesn't call you because you are worthy. God doesn't call you because you are capable. God calls you because he knows he can qualify you for that call. So it's not about you. It's sharing is giving you an evaluation sheet. Not to evaluate this place.
Exactly.
Not to evaluate the organizers. Not even to evaluate me. But to evaluate who? Ourselves. Thank you.
Forget that.
An evaluation sheet, I think that's the beauty of being the last one. Because they've all said all that we needed. We are only handling evaluation sheets. So the first evaluation question. So this weekend, as you were leaving your home, as you are about to leave your home, how do you think you've responded? How do you think you've made God feel? Because God has called you. How have you made God feel by the way you responded? How have you responded? We were encouraged to create silence, to be with Him. Did you try to do that? That's for your own evaluation. Did you try to spend that time with Him, with yourself and Him? Did you try to have the discipline of saying to my gadget, take a rest? We thought that we dragged our feet. Maybe there are some of us who were really the dancing out. You came dragging your feet. Sharing a room with someone with two people. Anyway, let's just go. It's only 2 nights. It's okay. If you are one of those, clap for yourself. If you are not one of those, just smile at yourself. Not for yourself, because I think I'm going to be daring and take Jesus' words and put them in my mouth for this purpose, because you are not far from the kingdom. I want to believe that the Lord is looking at you and loving you and saying, you are not far from the kingdom. Because there are probably people who turn it away, but maybe for genuine reasons. But maybe there are people who say, no way, that discomfort, sharing a room, forget it. Imagine Jesus saying to the Father, Dad, you mean I leave heaven, I go down there, that dusty place? Really? And turns to the Holy Spirit and says, maybe, why don't we ask Him? Imagine him say that. Not only this dusty earth, but the end of 33 years of mingling with dust, then he's killed. You mean that? You mean really? He doesn't say that. The disciples were with him not for 2 months. 3 years they were with him. You remember they had no base. Their pockets didn't have a whole lot of pounds to stay in hotels. I can imagine a scenario, a situation where these 12 guys, some nights they had to bundle together in one room. Not 1 night, not 2 nights. I imagine there are times where they needed to just bundle together because they were on the move. So we clap hands for ourselves because we also, said, I'm willing, I will leave the comfort and come and share with someone. And come to be in a place that is this, that, and the other, whatever the food is this, that, and the other. But for you, Lord, I will say yes. And I go. And then there are some of us who also jumped at the idea, at the opportunity. And we just said, here I am, Lord. I will come. So we've come, we've prayed, we've heard. What next? My second said. We've come, we've heard. What next? God is calling us as we sit here. God has called us this weekend. Because He wants you to respond to something that will bring you peace, to something that will bring you happiness. And that is what we need to bring to the world. This world is tainted by sin and darkness, whether we like it or not. And you are to bring this goodness and this peace to this world. What is your response? What will you choose? Choose an abortion? Choose to keep the baby? Or it's already sterilization has happened? And I don't know how that method is going to last. If the 5 years one, for 5 years sterile, it was just an overnight one. So I can wake up today and let this core, this seed inside me grow. What's my response? But before I'm going to ask you where to do another lot where it's just and Lazarus. Because it has to start from before you can go and sit and say in me first. Don't worry, I'll call your name too. What did you hear? After He has called, He instructs. And those who've been called, sit and listen. So following the call and the response comes attentive listening, comes the school of instruction. And the reason is obvious. And this instruction happens in various ways. But first of all, He calls them to be with Him. Mark chapter 3 verse 14. He called the 12 to be with Him and to be sent out to proclaim the message. Before He sends them out, He calls them to be with Him. And I think this weekend was about that. Called first to be with Him here before we can go out. You know, God loves company. God loves company. He doesn't want to be on His own. And so that's why Jesus says, when 2 or 3 gather, I am there. When you gather in my name, I am there. No invitation is needed. So the moment we walked through that gate, the whole lot of us gathered here in His name, we didn't even need to say, Maria, we are in all those prayers we do. He is already there. He has said it. So maybe that's a way of saying Jesus will come. But He's already there because He has said this what is true. It's not me. When 2 or 3 gather in my name, I am there. So when we say to Jesus, we are in He's already there. Maybe we should change and say, welcome you, thank you for being here. Tell you how much God loves our company. The sad thing is that when we gather in His name, we sometimes forget that He is there with us. And so we ignore His presence. That's the saddest thing. He is there. He's been here with us right now. He But when we forget, then we ignore his presence. And instead, we gather in the name of money. We gather in the name of squabbles. We gather in the name of differences. So automatically, when we gather in the name of squabbles and differences and money and whatever, our attention goes where? To those, whatever that has gathered us. And this one who came running with a big smile sits there. I wish he can show us his face sometimes when we do that. And of course, we will live with emptiness. We live with bitterness. Because that's what happens when we sidelined. But I hope this weekend was not that. So if you leave this place with some emptiness, maybe ask the question, what did I pay attention to? So they are with him to go through some formation. They are with him to experience love. God is love. And in the person of Jesus, we see what love looks like. We experience what love is like. We taste what love is like. We touch what love is like. And what love does is love transforms. You can't be in the presence of love and nothing happens. So they are with him so that they touch, they taste, they see love. He came this weekend to taste, to touch, to see, to experience love, who is God. And I hope that's been your experience somehow. And love transforms all things. Jesus is that love. So they are with this love, this person, to get transformed. They are with this person so that they get to know him, to love him, to trust him before they can go out there. So that when they go out, they go and talk about that personal experience. Father said yesterday, they are persecuted, and they say we cannot stop to talk about what we experienced, what we saw. So he has gathered us so that we can experience him before we can go out there. Is the God that you talk about a God of your experience? When you leave this place, the God you will go and talk about, is he a God of your experience? Many a times, some of us, my God, our God, is not a God of our personal experience. It's the God of the experience of the church. There's nothing wrong with that. Father talked to us about this church. Sometimes the experience is the God of my cheetah, the God of my family. As he said, you are born into that family and you take it for granted. We need to personalize the experience with Jesus. It has to move from being the experience of the church to being my experience. From the experience of my family to my experience. There is a difference when you meet someone and they tell you what they have seen as opposed to what they heard. And maybe our telling of this God is not changing someone because it's not the God of our experience. It's the God of someone's experience. Is God a God of my personal experience? Because that's what changes someone when I talk to them. That's what changes someone as I move about exhibiting what I have seen and tasted and touched. They spend time with him so that they can know his voice. John chapter 10, verses 4 to 5. The sheep, my sheep know me, they know my voice, and they follow. So they spend time so that they can know their voice, to be able to differentiate it from many other voices. Sometimes we are caught in wrong company. We are found in wrong places, caught up in wrong places, because we mistakenly believed the wrong voice. We thought it was his voice, only to realize it wasn't. Hence, we need such a time to learn to attune, to learn to identify his voice from the many voices. The turmoils that we go through in our personal lives, in our family lives, our workplaces, there will be many voices in that turmoil. But there will be one voice, one true voice. And you need to learn to identify that voice, or else you risk following the wrong voice, and you know the end result. They spend time with him so that they can be instructed, so that they can be reshaped, rewired in their way of thinking, in their way of seeing and judging. That's what I call the process of transformation, and we need that. I said this world is tainted by sin, so as a result, we no longer know how to think properly, to choose properly, to will properly. We need him to put us through a school that will help us to do that. Or else, we will go out there with half-baked information, with twisted messages. Have you ever sent someone, and when they get there, your message is twisted? You know the end result of that. So we stay with him so that we hear clearly, so that we don't go out there and take a twisted message, because that's disastrous. So I already said, he calls us through our circumstances. Through those situations again, he forms us. You know the famous story of the man born blind. He goes through some kind of formation until he comes to realize who this person is. And I'm sure he goes out and he tells. The centurion, whom we will hear about, is standing there, is participating in the killing of this person. It was through that experience, as horrible as it looked, at the end of it, he stands there and says, surely he was the Son of God. From the experience of killing this person and not realizing, through that somehow the Lord is working something, and he comes to realize. An invitation to see God, calling you, calling me, and forming us through our experiences, that painful experience you are going through right now. That hard situation you are going through right now. Could that be my road to my formation, to whatever the Lord wants me to see and hear? Can we see God forming us, doing something through those painful and tragic situations in our lives? And he's not asking us to do what he did not do. His whole life was one thing after the other. When we find ourselves saying it's one thing after the other, it didn't start on the cross. It just got heightened there. But before that, they had been wanting to kill him, remember? Listening, being instructed, takes time and discipline. If you rush with a half-baked message, we've already said it's disaster. Try to reflect on some in your life when you responded, when you acted on half-baked messages, when you rushed to tell a half-baked message? You know what that was like. We need to spend time with him. So when they were saying to us yesterday, take time to reflect, to be silent, to be with yourself, to be with him. It's so that he can rewire us. It's so that he can reshape us. It's so that he can help us, give us eyes, new eyes, to see as he sees, to judge as he judges, left to ourselves. Part of this formation involves learning to become family, learning to live with one another, to listen to one another, to discern God's will together. I hope synodality rings in your head. So, the synodal church, it started from the owner. Not even from the fathers of the church or the leaders, from the owner. He forms them so that they can do that. Learn to live together. Learn to hear his voice together. Learn to discern his will together. Learn to eye on differences. I think that's why in the church we take time. We have you know, they didn't walk into the seminary one day, tomorrow they are baked. It took time. She didn't leave her mother's house and walk in and they said, dress up now. The way she's looking, it took time. It took time. She didn't walk in from here and she's come.
Yes. Yes.
To learn to be together, to hear the voice together, to discern together. That is not the case. Is that the case in your chica? They had to learn to have humility, to be flexible, to give in to each other. They had to learn to have nambi. You know, those with the hash, the tieras, there was nothing like tieras. We had to learn that with Jesus. There's no such thing. Jesus doesn't. Jesus made them friends before they could go out there. They had to learn to be friends. But it did not take away their individuality. Peter remained Peter. James remained James. But they learned to be friends. And Morita, are you friends with the rest of them? Are you friends with the whole? Yes. Wow. I won't ask because I know. The circle of the 12 had young and old. Said John was quite young, the Peters were quite young, the married guys. That circle had crooks, the Matthews of this world, the tax collectors. It had aggressive political fighters. Some guys were zealots in that group. The whole lot. They stayed with him to learn to become friends. This place coming where we'll be talking and jumping and singing, will you leave that place having seen a face that is not the one you always see, that is not the one you always sleep with and share a room with? Will you see another face and make friends with that face? As I'm speaking right, you'll be surprised how many people feel isolated right in this room. Have we learned to look here and look here and become friends? Or it's just St. Gerard. Have we learned to be friends, a family, Zimbabwe chaplaincy community? Is that us? Or we still need formation?
Yes, we do.
Those who are with me gather. Those who scatter are not with me. If we are scattering, we are not with me. We need formation. And this weekend has been about that, so that we can hear once more correctly his message, so we don't distort it. So listening is crucial. And again, think of that one child who is a pleasure to talk to among your kids, among your azukuru, because when you stand before that child and not I am talking to you.
Yes, I can see that.
Think of that child. And you take out your evaluation sheet.
Yes.
What kind of a child have you been this weekend? What has been the quality of your listening this weekend? And what transformation has taken place or is taking place? Because we see it in the disciples. Their being with him leads to a transformation. What transformation has taken place in you? As a community, so there is you. What kind of listening? As a community, as a people gathered here, what did we hear the Lord say? What transformation has taken place? Post-COVID, we've been told, COVID has left us, whichever way it has left us, we know it. What's the Lord saying to us as a chaplaincy? What was the quality of your listening? What did you hear? What did you hear the Lord say to you? What did we hear the Lord say to us? After the listening, the formation, the learning how to be together, to bridge our differences, comes the sending, comes the taking the message. So we come into the end of our retreat. We came responding to a call. We sat, we listened, we were formed. And now comes the moment we will be sent. Some documents of the church in the famous Vatican II. I'm sure we are aware of these documents, Vatican II documents. There's a quote that says, "The pilgrim church is missionary by her very nature. Since it is from the mission of the Son and the mission of the Holy Spirit that she draws her origin, in accordance with the decree of God the Father. The church is missionary by her nature." So as we end the retreat, we will have Mass. At the end of the Mass, what are the last words we hear?
and serve the Lord.
Thank you. The mass is ended. Oh, don't stay here. But go. A word we hear several times in the scriptures.
Yeah.
So the mass is speaking what already is being lived by Jesus and the disciples, even before the New Testament. Abraham, go. Abraham, go. Where? To where I will show you. Moses, go. Go back to Egypt, to my people, set them free. Joseph, get up and go. Take the baby with you. Mary Magdalene, go and tell my disciples that I am alive. The same for the women at the tomb. They are to go. They stand there, ascension, they are gazing. For that tells them, we will go to the whole world. We are people on the move. That's the nature of the church. We are not people who are comfortable in the seat, in one seat. We are people on the move. That's why the end of them must go. Don't remain here. And we will meet Jesus after he has been with them. He sends them to go and heal, to go and proclaim the good news, to set prisoners free. In Mark chapter 5, verse 19, we meet a man who is healed of his demons. Let's have a test. They are too quiet. So he meets this man, chained and everything. He heals the man. Who wants to end the story for us? How does it end? And I'm talking to Catholics, I know. So the man wants to go with him. He wants to go with him. I said Mark chapter 5, verse 19. So from 18, as he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed by demons begged him that he might be with him. But Jesus refused and said to him, "Go home to your friends. Go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and what mercy he has shown you." To the 12, to the 72, he gives a different message, sends them somewhere. To another, he sends somewhere. We are people on the way. And Jesus is doing the same with us. Go and tell what you received. You received it freely. Freely go and give. But we paid. We paid for their water. We paid for the blankets. We paid for the But what he has done in us, freely you've received. Freely go and give. At the end of Mass, go, the Mass is ended. Go and tell what the Lord has done for you. Go and tell what you have experienced. Father said, I think we had a talk on Mass last night, isn't it? Go and share what you experienced. One important thing, at Mass, what we experience and what we receive is body broken, blood poured and shed. Go and tell that. Go and live that. Go and be bread broken for someone. Go and be blood poured out for someone. And how does that happen? If not through those painful experiences that demand you to be bread broken, so that your family, your environment, your community can come together. He pours his blood, breaks his of must go and become that. Don't go and be comfortable. That's not his way. So what did you receive this weekend? What experience did you have this weekend? Because that's what you will go and spread. That's what you will go and become. What's the message you will greet those you left behind? Mayanyan, when Babanyani opens the door, what's the message you will give it? My back is right. Oh, I had this encounter with the Lord. Something moved in my heart. Something happened to me. I feel lighter. I feel different. Or I see it different. It's the same situation, the same people, the same environment, but something has happened to my eyes. But somehow, oh, that was black. I'm beginning to realize, oh, there's a white spot there that I didn't see before. What has been my experience? Because that's what I will take back. What has happened to me, that's what I will take back. There are a whole lot of people in darkness. This world is dark. As beautiful as it is because it's touched by God. At the same time, we've darkened it. Your sin, my sin, our wrong choices, our mistakes have darkened this world. So there is darkness in this world, and there is someone who is in the dark. There is someone who is lifeless. Because the one person who was meant to take a message that will bring light to that person, that will bring life to that person, is not doing it. Because the one person who's meant to go and be the light for that person takes negativity and adds to the darkness that is already there. There is someone somewhere who needs you. There is someone somewhere the Lord is asking you to go to. Will you take light, or you go and add to the darkness that is already there? By what you will say, what you will do, what you will think, and what you will fail to do. What we are going to go and tell them out there will have an impact on next year's retreat. Someone will either want to come or they will never think of coming because of what you said to them, because of what I've said to them. What we will go and say out there will have an impact on someone's life, on a choice somebody is going to make for today and into tomorrow. When you go on pilgrimages, you bring baggage, right? And this community is full of kind people. These people you see here, you see them. These people have been kind to me, and I mean kind to me. I don't know. Have they been kind to you? To me, these people have been kind. Some have gone to places that I've never been. That have a beautiful Fatima Rosa, and that makes me feel like I've been to Fatima. Somebody just thought, oh, there is that poor sister there doing her Rosa. And it brought a smile to me. We've come here. If we were on pilgrimage, we'd be weighing your suitcases because they'll be overweight, right? Did you overweigh your suitcase before you packed it this month? Okay. We came on within this place. What are you taking back? What's in your suitcase? If it's overweight, what is in it? What have you bought? Baba Pasi that you left behind, my cousin. For the children and the friends you left behind, what are you buying? What are you carrying? What are you overweight with? So you call someone you know and trust, and you give them a message, an urgent message. Jesus has called us and is giving us an urgent message because he trusts us. Just think of it. The Lord has trusted you this much to give you his message. How does that make you feel? Consider this privilege of the Master because it is a privilege. And I end with what Father said is a sin of our church. So we are called and sent not alone, but together. And I won't say much because we've been talking a lot about this togetherness. He sends us with companions on the journey. That's God's vision. Even Shantra Pamo. God doesn't do just me, one man's show. It's Shantra Pamo. Because it's hard when you're on your own. Because at times it's even impossible on your own. It's enjoyable with others, isn't it? Yes. God is not a solitary person. He's communion, community. And he's asking us to go on the journey together. When he calls Abraham, he doesn't go on his own. He has to walk with Lot. Moses goes with other people of Israel. He gives him Aaron to accompany him, Mary and Joseph, Jesus and the 12. So the church, in as much as it is missionary, but it is together, not as individuals. And that's what makes this church. So God is pleased to save us as a nation, as a people, not as individuals. Would you want to go to heaven and just be on your own in heaven? Imagine. So, together he calls us to move together, to be together. So if we are to be true to him, we don't do it alone. We don't leave it to one person. He says to us, we are salt of the earth. When you put salt in the osari, you don't pick that one grain. You pick that one grain, surely what does it do? You take a whole teaspoon or whatever, isn't it? So if we're just going to pick one grain, it will not work. We just pick mighty Bavaya alone, it will not work. It means the whole of us. The priests, the brothers, the sisters, the horses, the whoever, everybody. Together. That's how salt works. So if he says we are salt, we have to be together. So the mentality that only I can do it, that's a delusion. The mentality that that's sinful. So what I was saying, actually, if you forgot that one, you go back for possession. Because that's not the church of Christ. The church of Christ is not right. It's me alone, they can't do it. Together. And that's what effectively manifests the nature of the church. A pilgrimage, missionary people of God. So the mission fails when we exchange roles. When we become the Jesus who calls, who gives the message, and who sends. Should it be after what message do you have that can change the world? That I can stand in this place and think my thoughts and give you and say, go. No wonder the world is dark. Let's check. Am I exchanging roles? It's him to call, to give the message and to send, not the other way around. I am to do it with companions. Am I willing? Am I open to that? From here, where to? So, what part am I playing on this journey? We have this weekend being invited. As you leave this place, not in Muriel of your surname, this mood. This mood. Check. What is our language? Aroma Swan and Muriel. So what have we had as a chaplaincy? Where are we heading to from here? Not just as individuals, but together. Dr. Mazima, Nemuri, from here, where? So to whom are we being sent? First of all, you as an individual, to whom are you being sent? What's the message? As a community journeying together, to whom are we being sent? What's the message? Are we willing to let go of the comfort of our zones, the comfort of wherever I am, to go to my family, to my friends, to my colleague, to the chaplaincy community? This Holy Week, we're going to walk a journey of someone who was willing to the end. We like with that, because if not, it's pointless. He shed his blood for nothing.